So, when I, 29-year-old male, was 21, I got a scholarship to study in Japan. I was a college student in the US. I was very excited to go. However, a girl I was seeing ended up pregnant. We were not together, but were exclusive. Of course, I didn't want a baby with my friend with benefits, and also it would ruin my opportunity to go to Japan. I begged her to have a baby unaliving, since why would any of us want that baby? We were definitely not committed to each other. We had discussed baby unalivings before as many other subjects, so I knew that she didn't have a problem with baby unalivings. However, she decided that she was going to keep the baby. I told her that honestly I didn't want to be a father, but that I'll wait until the baby's birth because maybe I'll feel different then. I didn't change my mind when the baby was born. So we agreed that I wouldn't be an active father, but I'll fulfill all of my responsibilities. I had to cancel my trip to Japan to get a better job so I could pay child support. Thankfully, my parents also helped me, so I moved in with them. I almost had to drop out of college, but thankfully I was able to graduate. I still wanted to go to Japan, so when one of my former classmates moved there to work, I asked him to let me know if there was any vacancy at his company. I got a job there and moved in October 2019. Ever since, I couldn't come back to America because of infection 19, and also because the rhythm of work there is harder, so I was always working and trying to advance in my career. Of course, I continued sending the money for my son. Well, the thing is that I have vacation now and I travelled for Thanksgiving. I arrived here the week before Thanksgiving and my parents prepared a welcome party with our family and friends. They apparently got very close to my son when I was not here and they invited him and his mother. To be honest, I don't have any problems with them, but we don't have a close relationship either. When I went to the backyard where the guests were, I greeted them both, but I was feeling awkward and we didn't talk much. When everyone left, my parents told me off because they expected me to be way happier about seeing my son. We got into a bit of an argument and now my mother and father are upset at me for being so cold. I don't understand why they expected me to be happier. I don't know my son too well and he wasn't very excited to see me either, but it's been far too long and they're still upset, so I need some outsider's point of view since my friends are agreeing with me, but they might be doing it just to avoid arguing with me. Edit. I'm sorry I didn't realise this was not clear in the post, but I didn't kick my son or his mum out of the party. They stayed until the end. I greeted them, asked him about his school and his martial arts classes, and he told me he's doing fine, so I congratulated him. His mother hasn't texted me at all to tell me that the kid's sad after seeing me. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Both you and your son's mother agreed that you wouldn't be an active father. You are still sending money to your son, so it's not like you're not helping your son in some way. Comment 2. Not the idiot. They wanted you to bond so much that you can't live in Japan because you will be too far away. They want you to move back, and they thought this would get you to do that. Now for the update, a lot has happened since I last shared about the awkward encounter with my son and his mum at the welcome party my parents threw for me. I guess I've been on a bit of a journey, emotionally speaking, and I've learnt a lot about myself and my family in the process. After the party, things were tense with my parents. They were disappointed in me, and I was frustrated because I felt like they were expecting something from me that I just couldn't give. But as the days passed, I started to feel this nagging sense of guilt. I couldn't shake the image of my son looking at me with those expectant eyes, and it hit me that maybe I was missing out on something important. I decided to reach out to his mum and asked if we could meet up, just the three of us. It was a bit awkward at first, but we went to a local park, and I watched my son play. He's grown so much, and I found myself feeling proud of him, even though I hadn't been there to see all those milestones. His mum and I had a long talk while he was busy on the swings. She told me how he's been asking about me, and it was a wake-up call. I realised that no matter how much I tried to keep my distance, I was still his dad, and he was curious about me. We didn't dive into deep emotional stuff, but it was a start, and we agreed to keep the lines of communication open. I spent the rest of my vacation trying to make up for lost time. I went to a couple of his martial arts classes, and seeing him so focused and determined was honestly amazing. We even had a few just us guys outings, and I got to know him better. He's a smart kid, funny too, and I found myself looking forward to our time together. When it was time for me to head back to Japan, saying goodbye was harder than I expected. My son hugged me tight and asked when I'd be back. It was a moment that I'll never forget, and it made me realise that I didn't want to be the guy who just sent checks from halfway across the world. Back in Japan, I threw myself into work, but my heart wasn't in it like before. I kept thinking about my son and all the years I'd missed. I started video calling him regularly and we'd talk about his day, his friends, and all the little things. It wasn't the same as being there, but it was something. Then, out of the blue, his mum sent me a video of him at a martial arts tournament. He won his match, and when the camera panned to his face, he was beaming. She told me he'd been working hard, hoping to make me proud. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I was proud. So incredibly proud, and I realised I wanted to be more involved in his life. I talked to my boss about the possibility of transferring back to the States, or at least finding a position that would allow me more flexibility to visit. It took some negotiating, but they understood my situation and agreed to help me find a solution. Meanwhile, my relationship with my parents improved. They saw the effort I was making with my son, and we had some deep conversations about family and responsibility. They admitted they were harsh on me at the party, but they were just worried about their grandson. We all apologized for the hurtful things said, and it felt like a weight had been lifted. When I finally managed to secure a position that would bring me back to the States, I was over the moon. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous about the big changes ahead, but I was ready to face them. I moved back a couple of weeks ago, and the reunion with my son was something out of a movie. He ran into my arms and I promised him I'd be there for him from now on. His mum and I have been working on a co-parenting plan, and while it's still early days, I'm optimistic. I've learned that being a parent isn't just about the big gestures, it's about the everyday moments, the small victories, and the challenges you face together. I've missed out on a lot, but I'm here now and I'm determined to be the best dad I can be. So that's where I'm at. It's been a journey of self-discovery, and I'm grateful for the second chance I've been given. I'm finally feeling like I'm where I'm supposed to be, and it's a pretty great feeling. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Hey there, tough situation you've been in. Just curious, have you considered what your son might feel about all this? It's never too late to build that bridge. Maybe start with small steps like regular video calls. Kids grow up fast and you don't want to miss it all. Comment 2. Oh buddy, you've been on quite the roller coaster, huh? Look, parenting is like trying to fold a fitted sheet. No one really knows how, but we all pretend we do. Time to roll up your sleeves and dive into the dad jokes and diaper duties. Trust me, it's worth it. Now for the next story. What I did was wrong. I feel stupid. I kind of snapped, I guess. My husband and I have 2 daughters. 12-year-old Hayley, my stepdaughter, and 2-month-old Hannah. Since I gave birth and up until about 2 weeks ago, I couldn't keep down any food outside of crackers. It would just make me sick, which the doctors said was because of me adjusting to breastfeeding and that it was normal. So up until 2 weeks ago, every single hot meal I made was eaten 100% by Hayley and my husband, though I still made myself a portion just in case. Hayley always ate my portion before leaving the table. She would see it set out on a plate for me that I would try picking at, but as soon as she touched it, I would stop picking at it and she would just take over. I spoke to her about it a few times because I won't eat anything that another person has touched. It grosses me out. So she knew. She just didn't care to stop because it's not like you're going to eat it anyways. My husband has spoken up to her several times and ultimately told me that I just wasn't making enough food because Hayley was still starving after eating her plate and second helpings. When I was finally able to keep food down again, I started making more dinner to combat the issue. Like I made a big sheet pan of lasagna. Definitely should have been leftovers. But my husband had 2 helpings, and the rest went to Hayley because right after I made dinner, the baby was fussy and tired and ultimately needed to be fed. So I excused myself to the other room, and when I came back a half hour later, Hayley was forking the last portion out of the pan using her fingers. So she touched it, I wouldn't eat it. Or last night I made 5 medium-sized chicken breasts. My husband had 2, Hayley had 2, and I had 1 on my plate. I was eating it slowly, so I wouldn't get sick. Hayley ate her entire plate and then said, "You gonna eat that?" and put her finger directly on my chicken. My husband sent her to her room, but ultimately, I didn't eat it. She knew what she was doing. Then tonight, I made 5 cheeseburgers for them, I can't eat hamburger, and 2 hot dogs for myself. Again, I ended up having to feed the baby directly after finishing dinner. They had eaten by the time I was finished feeding the baby. I made myself up my 2 hot dogs, and Hayley reaches over and picks up the hot dog, bun and all, and flips it over, puts it back down and says, "Was just checking if the bread was moldy." And then looks up and sees me glaring at her and says, "Oops, sorry, forgot. Guess you're not going to eat that now, so I can have it if you want." I took my entire dinner, plate and all, and chucked it in the trash can and walked off. She starts crying to my husband about not meaning to upset me and that she was just hungry. My husband yelled at me for being childish and wasting food and left with his daughter. He said, "Yeah, I get that it's freaking annoying and I reprimand her every single freaking time, but you didn't have to stoop to her freaking level. You're more childish than she is." ETA. It's not just with dinner that this happens. Even when I was eating nothing but crackers, she would still ask me for my food. She eats multiple snacks during the day, as well as big breakfasts and lunches. She's been to a nutritionist and she's healthy. She has a high metabolism and just constantly wants food, as well as bored eats. Never gains a pound though. She's 5'2", 86 pounds. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, but you married someone who spawned a child. That he allows this is hurtful. He literally doesn't care. As far as she goes, she clearly has issues going on. See if her school has any counselling services. Man, you married a true-to-heart jerk, though. He's the biggest problem here. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Tonight, fix dinner, remove your portion, and sit the rest in front of Hayley. Tell your husband he can have whatever she leaves for him. Now, for the update. A lot has happened since the last time I talked about the dinner drama at home. I never imagined that a situation about sharing food could spiral into such a mess, but here we are. After the hot dog incident, things got really tense. My husband and I barely spoke for a couple of days. It was like walking on eggshells whenever we were in the same room. Hayley, on the other hand, seemed to be on her best behavior, but I could tell it was just because she was scared of the fallout. I realized that this couldn't go on. We were a family, and families are supposed to work through their issues, not let them fester. So I decided to take the first step. I sat down with my husband after the girls had gone to bed, and we had a heart-to-heart. I explained how I felt disrespected and how my issues with food were more serious than just being picky. It was about feeling in control of something when everything else was so chaotic with a new baby. He listened, really listened, and apologized for not taking it more seriously. He admitted that he had been so focused on making sure Hayley felt included and not left out with the new baby that he hadn't considered my feelings enough. We agreed that we needed to work as a team, and that meant setting boundaries and rules for mealtimes. The next day we sat down with Hayley and laid out the new house rules. No touching other people's plates, no second helpings until everyone had finished their first, and most importantly, we emphasized the importance of respect at the dinner table. Hayley was quiet, but she nodded and apologized for her behavior. I could tell she was sincere, and it felt like a weight had been lifted. Over the next few days, things started to improve. Mealtimes were no longer a battleground, but a place where we could enjoy each other's company. Hayley was sticking to the rules, and I made sure to praise her for it, which seemed to make her beam with pride. But it wasn't just about the food. My husband and I started to reconnect. We made time for each other after the girls went to bed, even if it was just to watch a show together or talk about our day. It was like we were rediscovering each other, and it felt good. As for Hayley, I started to involve her more in the kitchen. We cooked together, and I taught her some of my favorite recipes. It became our thing, and I could see her confidence growing. She was proud of the meals she helped create, and it stopped being about how much she could eat and more about the experience of making it. One evening, about 2 weeks after the hot dog incident, we had a breakthrough. I had made a big batch of spaghetti and meatballs, a family favorite. We all sat down, and Hayley served herself a reasonable portion. We ate, we laughed, and when everyone was done, there were still leftovers. Hayley looked at them and then at me and said, "You know, I'm actually full. I think I'll save some for lunch tomorrow." It was a small victory, but it felt huge. My husband squeezed my hand under the table, and I knew we were finally on the right track. As for Hannah, she's growing like a Zaza and is the happiest little baby. She's been sleeping better, which means I'm sleeping better, and everything just seems a bit brighter. Looking back, I can't believe how out of hand things got. But I've learned that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to start climbing back up. We're not a perfect family, but we're a family that's willing to work on our problems, and that's what counts. So here we are 2 weeks later, with a stronger family bond and a newfound appreciation for each other. It's funny how life works out sometimes. You think it's all falling apart, but really, it's just falling into place. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Oh honey, you're not running a 24/7 diner for the stepdaughter with the bottomless pit of a stomach. It's time to introduce Hayley to the concept of ask before you snatch. Maybe a cooking lesson or two could help her appreciate the effort that goes into meal prep. Comment 2. I totally get where you're coming from. It's not easy dealing with postpartum changes and a food swiper. Have a calm chat with your hubby and stepdaughter about personal boundaries and the importance of respecting each other's needs. It's all about teamwork in a family, right? If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.